America, my name is Osei-Frimpong. I come to you live every Thursday about this time, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the internal point of view and what the internal point of view is, what's at stake, and understanding any sort of being or entity from internally versus understanding it from the outside. All right, so let's say I were to drop you into a football game. I'm at the UGA right now, and that's, big college football town. Say I were to drop you in a football game. I just kind of drop you in. All of a sudden, people are hitting you every now and then. Everyone's yelling at you. Some people on the same uniform are yelling at you. Some people with different uniforms are yelling at you. The crowd's yelling at you. It's just a lot of yelling. It's just a mess and you don't know why. You don't know anything about football. You don't know, unbeknownst to you, they've been instructed not to tell you anything about the game. And so every now and then you move and you get hit. And you don't, and then you don't, but then you don't move when you're supposed to move and you get hit. But eventually you figure it out. You figure out that, hey, if I move this way, I get hit. But if I don't move this way, I don't get hit. And if I carry the ball this way, people, say good things about me. And if I don't do it, people yell at me. So eventually you figure out kind of the rules of the game over the course of a season. You figure out the rules. You don't really figure out the rules of the game. You figure out how to behave in a way that gives you individual pleasures and pain. You don't know why anything is the way it is. You just move in a certain way, and you realize that if I do this, that happens. And it's all based on induction and probability. Induction is just the ability to look at particular instances and generalize from those particular instances to a general rule. And so it's all probability and induction. You don't know the reason why anything works the way it works. You just know that that you've witnessed and you see, if I do this, this happens. So it's all about kind of correlations and getting a big massive correlations. And from that, you kind of sketch what you perceive to be the big view of the game. Every now and then, it turns out if you give money to the referee, you get things you want, but you can't do that in public or you'll get put in jail. But if you do that behind or after the game, you get what you want. So there are all of these practices that you can kind of see patterns in, and through seeing patterns in these practices, you somehow end up winning. And then all of a sudden, maybe they ask you to coach, maybe they ask you to umpire, right? So what does that happen? And that is an understanding of the game, but that's an external understanding of the game. An internal understanding of the game, now compare that situation that I've just laid out with someone who was there at the meeting debating the rules of football. At the ownership and governance meeting, they were debating about what constitutes a pass and why you can do a side lateral and not a forward lateral, and why there are 4 downs and not 5, and all of these issues. They were debating the entire game. You were at that meeting, you saw the rules, you saw why, you saw how it all fits together and how each rule kind of interrelates to a different rule in a way to constitute kind of a fair game that will bring out some sort of quality in the athletes and the coaches and the team's systems. And you will understand why every rule is what it is, right? That person would have an internal view of the game. They understand it because the game is itself reasonable and they are reasonable. So they have a mind that can grasp the internal workings of the game. The game is not other than its reason. For the person with the external view, there's no promise of coherence to what's going on. There is just the kind of probabilistic working out. There is no why this happens. It's just that we've just seen externally, I do this and then that happens. The person with the internal point of view has an account of why certain things fit together, why certain behaviors and why they're expressed in certain behaviors, and which certain behaviors are wrong and right in a way. So let's take the person with the external point of view. The person with the external point of view doesn't know why you shouldn't just bribe the referee. It's all in the game. You've heard that. I guess there might be an old song about that. I know I've definitely heard Omar say that from The Wire. It's all in the game. So if you get away with bribing the referee and you win that way, that means bribing the referee is in the game. It's all in the game. You don't know why you shouldn't bribe the referee. Whereas the other person who knows exactly like how the game was structured will be frustrated when referees get bribed. Now, to be clear, there are going to be two types of anxiety that are going to be characteristic of these different types of understanding of the game. The first anxiety is going to be with the person with the external view of the game. They don't know anything about the rules. They don't know why things happen. They're just working on probabilities. It could all fall apart, and they'll be like, "Well, I didn't know why it worked to begin with. It was all kind of hunches and pattern recognition, with nothing actually sustaining the patterns." Right? So they're going to be frustrated just because it's going to be a very anxious process. Now, the other person's going to be frustrated for a different reason. That other person's going to be frustrated, who does have the internal notion of the game, is because they're going to be very frustrated at people who don't play by the rules and yet are successful. Now, you can imagine someone with an external view of the game winning a lot of games for a variety of reasons. Even if they don't know why what they're doing is working, somehow it works because they've lucked into like a sort of pattern recognition, or they lucked into some sort of infelicity that they don't really care about. They've habituated themselves to cheating, but they don't even know or really care that they're cheating, because what's cheating anyway, right? It's all in the game, right? So you can imagine this person with the external point of view actually winning. Through like what's considered cheating or not fair play, because they don't play by the Marquise of Queensberry rules that was set up while the other person is the Marquise of Queensberry. So like they know the rules. They were there. They are the Marquise of Queensberry. So you can imagine both sides being frustrated. One, because they only have a probabilistic understanding of the view of the game and the rules of the game, and the other, because they know internally the rules of the game, and they also know that other people are cheating, but it's not stopping the cheaters from cheating and prospering. Right? So you have two different sources of frustration. So the question is, are these two people actually playing the same game? And if they are they doing it in the same way, right? So one person is doing it more meaningfully. You would like to think that one person is doing it more meaningfully than the other. Because they actually decided and like know what they're doing and why what they're doing fits in with everything else, in the way that the other person's just kind of, like I said, they have a probabilistic understanding of how this all works, but it's not reasoned. It's not from reason. They put it together from outside of reason, whereas the person on this side put it together within reason. They know that the game is not other than their capacity to understand it. So and they were there when it was reasoned out. So they know exactly what the game is, right? So they have an internal point of view and they can more meaningfully act, right? So what's at stake? There's a lot of things at stake here. There are different understandings of how the internal and external point of view work. With respect to, the quick answer with racism is, if you have an internal understanding of the game, you know that the game might be designed against Black people, like securing self-determination. It was the purpose of the game. It was like, this is why the Fugitive Slave Act happened here. This is why states have this kind of power over little Black municipalities. This is why, it's all like that was part of the reasoning of the game. So you need to actually change the game. It's not like some sort of external factor. It's actually like this was built into the system on purpose by the people who built the system for this reason. Right? So that's one reason why you want an internal understanding of the game, so that people who want to tell you that racism is sort of an accident of America, you can say that, like, actually, no, it is the purpose of this system that we've built. We have a slaver's constitution that was organized to promote property, even that property that occasionally runs away or slits your throat, right? So what, do you want to come say hi to the people? Yeah, this is my daughter. Oh, she All right, come say hi to the people.
Hi.
Hello.
He told me that the man of my dream
Hey.
Saturday traveled to
She's singing We Don't Talk About Bruno, which is actually a fascinating in a philosophical way. Let me finish my show and then we'll talk about your homework, okay?
Okay. Where's Mama?
She'll be home soon. She'll be home soon.
What about our snack?
I'll make the snack when I'm done, okay? I'll be done in probably 10 minutes. All right?
Okay.
Okay. All right. So,
Bye-bye.
so the internal point of view actually gives you meaning to what you're doing, right? And kind of a firmer stance on any sort of redress you want. The external point of view, you were always only ever talking about patterns and things that weren't supposed to make sense to reason anyway, that you forced into reason for your own gains. It's not a reason internal to the thing in itself. It's just you're trying to kind of game how it affects you. So we talked a little bit how that could affect, like understanding the difference can affect how you see racism. I want to talk a little bit about how understanding the difference can affect how you see programs, like even like speeding tickets, right? Person with the external point of view just says like, well, if I can pay the ticket, I can speed. Pay the ticket and then you go and speed again. I'm rich. That's part of what it is to be rich. I can speed. I can do what I want. If I can pay the fine, I can do the crime. Right? That's a person with the external point of view. Now, if you get a legislator with an external point of view, they'll have little card readers. Apparently, they're thinking about this in Texas, or they might have gone through. They have little card readers where, like, you can just pay your ticket right then and there, or pay for like vouchers for future tickets, and the argument for it is that, well, it's a more effective tax base that way. It's a more effective tax revenue service if we just allow people to buy, kind of like indulgences. You just allow people to buy 2 and 3 speeding tickets ahead, or you can just swipe right then and there to pay for it. It's better for the tax revenue. And that's what it's all about anyway. And that's if you have an external point of view, right? If you have an internal point of view, it's like, no, we wanted to actually keep school zones safe and keep the safe roads. And like, there were reasons why we had this wasn't always about tax revenue. That is something external to the meaning of this ticket, tax revenue. But if you have the external point of view and you just see it all as about tax revenue, then like, yeah, no problem. As a legislature, you can say like, no problem with giving people tickets. We should encourage people to speed. And that way, if we encourage people to speed, we get more money from them. Right? And so like there's a lot at stake in actually thinking through the internal and external point of view. If you don't know the purpose of speeding like laws, like to encourage public safety, not as a resource draw for tax revenue, you'll find yourself like using it for nefarious purposes. And so but you don't know that unless you know the meaning and the reason for the laws to begin with. So you don't just need to know the law, you need to know the meaning of the law, especially if you're a legislator. But insofar as all of us citizens live under the law, if you care about the public administration of justice, you have to have a general understanding of why we have the laws we have, not just that we have the laws that we have. All right? And so this internal point of view is a point of view that understands that the thing is itself reasonable and isn't external to reason. And so the thinking mind is of the same kind of thing as the thing is in itself, so we can actually know it as it is in itself, not just how it happens to affect us. Right? So I can know if I was there when the game of football originated, like what the game of football is, not just how it happens to affect me, like as a football player who is thrown into the game but doesn't know the rules and doesn't know that the rules have meaning. Right? So the internal point of view allows you to know what a thing is in itself because you understand its reasoning in itself, not just how it is opposed to you. and alienated from you. Because you remember, the person with the external point of view is never actually a part of the game in the same way. They are always kind of externally, they don't understand the game. They're always, even if they win it, they want it as someone who is still external to it because they are not of it. They are not in it. The game doesn't make sense to them in its meaning in the same way. Does that make sense? So thank you for your time. Oh, by the way, you're not going to get this kind of commentary, and this has a lot. Like, we'll be dealing with this, and probably this is important to understand. But you're not going to get this kind of commentary anywhere else. So if you like what I'm doing, go ahead and kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month to my website, either the Patreon account or funkyacademic.com. And I will keep doing what I'm doing because I think it's important to do what I do. Right. Someone said the external point of view is Black history. The internal point of view is Black history with critical race theory. That actually is right. That actually is right. So you understand the meaning of what's going on. You just say, you're not just find yourself blaming yourself. Well, why do I keep getting screwed? I guess I didn't play the game right. No. When you think of playing the game right, you're thinking playing the game externally to how the game was designed. The game was designed for you to get screwed. So that's we need to change the rules of the game to actually allow us to actually be real players in it. So by the way, thank you for your time. I will see you next week. Take care.